The night air over Willow Creek carried the scent of rain and regret, rolling in with the thunder that trembled across the vast Montana plains. A storm was coming, both in the skies and in their hearts. The wind howled through the barn rafters as the lantern light flickered, casting trembling shadows on the wooden walls. Claire stood there, her fingers wrapped around the edge of her worn denim jacket, her heart racing faster than the storm outside. She hadn't meant to come back to this place, not after the way she'd left, not after what she'd said that night 2 years ago. But life had a cruel way of circling back, forcing her to face the ghosts she'd tried to outrun. "You shouldn't be here," a deep voice echoed from behind her, firm yet threaded with something softer, something dangerous. She turned slowly, and there he was, Eli Thompson, the man she'd once loved, the rancher who'd built his world around the silence she'd left behind. He looked older, broader, and the years had carved strength into the lines of his face. The brim of his hat shadowed eyes that had once seen her as home. Now, they watched her like she was a wildfire that might burn everything he'd rebuilt. "I didn't come to stay," Claire said, her voice trembling as she stepped back toward the door. "Then why are you here, Claire?" Eli's words cut through the sound of rain hitting the roof. "Because I had nowhere else to go," she whispered, and just like that, all the walls he'd built since she'd left started to crack. Eli took a slow step forward, his boots crunching against the straw. He'd thought about this moment more times than he'd admit. How she'd look if she ever came back, what he'd say, how he'd stop himself from touching her. But seeing her standing there, soaked by the rain and framed by lightning, all he could think about was how much he'd missed her. "You've got a lot of nerve coming back after what you did," he said quietly. "I didn't come here for forgiveness." "Good," he muttered. "Because I don't have any left to give." His words hit her harder than the rain ever could. But Claire wasn't the same girl who'd run from him before. Life had changed her. Loss had hardened her. She looked him straight in the eyes and said, "I didn't ask for your forgiveness, Eli. I just need a place to stay for a few nights. Then I'll be gone." He stared at her for a long moment, torn between pride and something deeper. "The old guest room's still yours," he said finally, voice rough. "But don't think this changes anything." As the storm raged outside, she followed him through the dimly lit house she used to know so well. The photographs on the walls were different now, less of them smiling, more of him working. One caught her eye, Eli standing by the old oak tree, his arm around his dog, the same place where he'd once carved her name into the bark. She touched the frame, her throat tightening. "You never took it down?" she whispered. Eli turned slightly. "Didn't see the point," he said simply. "You were part of this place once. The land remembers, even when I try to forget." The words hit her like a confession. For a moment, neither spoke. The rain softened, but the silence between them only grew louder. Later that night, Claire stood by the window of the guest room, watching lightning crawl across the horizon. She could hear Eli downstairs, moving through the kitchen, pouring himself whiskey the way he used to when he couldn't sleep. She remembered that sound, the faint clink of glass against wood. It used to mean something. She closed her eyes, whispering into the darkness, "You'll regret choosing me again." But what she didn't know was that Eli was standing just outside the door, hearing every word. He smiled faintly, bitter and tender all at once. "I already regret waiting this long," he murmured to himself before walking away. The next morning came golden and still, as if the world was pretending the storm had never happened. Claire woke to the sound of horses. In the corral, instinct led her outside, boots crunching on the damp earth. The ranch looked the same, fences mended, fields stretching endlessly, the sky impossibly wide. Eli was already at work, shirt sleeves rolled up, sweat glinting on his forearms as he fixed a fence post. He didn't look up when she approached. "You always did start your mornings too early," she said, trying to sound casual. "And you always slept through half of them," he replied, voice flat. She smiled sadly. Guess some things don't change. Some things shouldn't, he said, finally meeting her eyes. They worked side by side in silence, mending the fence. Every so often their hands brushed, and the air grew heavier. The memory of what they'd been hung between them. Something fragile, unfinished. "You really think I'd regret choosing you?" he asked suddenly, breaking the quiet. She froze, the hammer still in her hand. "Eli, you said it last night," he continued, "that I'd regret choosing you. You were wrong, Claire. The only thing I regret is letting you walk away the first time." She looked at him, tears blurring the horizon. "You don't mean that. You don't know what I've done, what I've lost." "Then tell me," he said gently. But she shook her head, pain flashing across her face. "Some things are better buried." That night, as darkness crept back across the plains, Claire sat by the barn, her arms wrapped around herself. The sound of crickets filled the silence, but inside her, the storm hadn't ended. She reached into her pocket, pulling out a crumpled photograph, her younger brother, smiling, alive. "I'm sorry," she whispered to the night. Eli found her there hours later, the moonlight soft on her face. "You still talk to him?" he asked quietly. She didn't flinch. "Every night." "You don't have to carry it alone, Claire." "Yes, I do," she said, "because I was the one driving that night. I was the one who lived." The confession broke something inside him. He knelt beside her, his hand trembling as it reached for hers. "You should have told me. I couldn't. You'd have looked at me the way everyone else did." "No," he said. "I'd have held you tighter." For the first time in years, she let herself cry. He pulled her close, the scent of rain still lingering on his skin. "You don't have to run anymore," he whispered. "You don't have to hide here either," she said, her voice breaking. "I came back because I wanted to say goodbye the right way this time." He looked at her, his jaw tightening. "Goodbye doesn't fix what's broken." "No," she said softly, "but maybe forgiveness can." As dawn painted the ranch in gold, Claire stood at the edge of the corral, her heart caught between leaving and staying. Eli walked up behind her, his hand brushing hers. "You think I'll regret this?" he asked, his tone half teasing, half aching. She turned, her eyes filled with tears and truth. "You'll regret choosing me," he smiled, slow and sure. "I already regret waiting this long." The wind rose again, gentle this time, carrying the scent of new beginnings through the valley. But both of them knew the storm wasn't over. It was only moving to the next horizon, waiting for them to find out if love could truly survive what time and pain had tried to destroy. The morning after the storm was quiet, almost too quiet, as if the land itself was holding its breath. The sun crept over the horizon, casting long golden lines across the ranch, painting everything in a deceptive calm. Claire stood by the fence, her hands wrapped around a mug of coffee gone cold, watching the horses move lazily through the pasture. Each hoofbeat reminded her of time, steady, unstoppable, indifferent. She'd been here for 3 days now, each one stretching like a confession waiting to be made. She had promised herself she wouldn't stay this long, wouldn't let the land or Eli's eyes trick her into believing in something that could never be fixed. But promises, she had learned, were fragile things. Eli had been quieter than usual, though his silence wasn't cold anymore. It was searching, as if he was trying to find pieces of her in everything she touched. He'd catch her humming to the horses, fixing the fence, or sitting by the porch with her journal, and each time his chest would tighten a little more. He didn't need to ask why she came back. He knew loss when he saw it, but what he didn't know was that the loss wasn't done taking from her. That morning, a black truck pulled into the drive, its tires spitting up gravel. Claire froze when she saw it, her heart slamming against her ribs. The man who stepped out wore a sheriff's badge, his face shadowed by years of hard truths. "Claire Reynolds?" he asked, voice steady. Eli stepped forward instinctively, his stance protective. "What's this about, Sheriff?" The man sighed. "We've been trying to reach her for weeks. It's about her father." The words hit her like a stone. Her father. She hadn't heard that name in months, not since she'd sent him a letter from a city she never meant to stay in. Sheriff Barnes handed her an envelope, yellowed from rain and travel. He passed 3 nights ago. Heart failure. The world tilted. The mug slipped from her hands, shattering on the porch. Eli caught her before she could fall. "No," she whispered, shaking her head. "I was supposed to see him. I wrote him. I told him I'd come back." Her voice broke into pieces. "Claire," Eli murmured, holding her tighter. "He left you this," the sheriff said, pulling a small box from his pocket. "Said it was meant to find you wherever you ran." Inside was a rusted key and a folded letter. Her hands trembled as she opened it. "My Claire," it began, "I know you've carried the weight of your brother's death for too long, but I was there that night. I saw the road. It wasn't your fault. The truck that hit you lost control first. You just happened to be in its path. I should have told you then, but I couldn't bear to see you blame yourself. Please come home. Let the land forgive you if I cannot." The tears came hard and fast. The guilt that had defined her every breath for 2 years suddenly cracked open, replaced by a pain that was somehow worse. The pain of wasted time. "He knew," she whispered. "He knew it wasn't my fault, and he never told me." Eli pulled her closer. "Then now you can forgive yourself," he said softly, but she shook her head. "You don't understand, Eli. I spent 2 years running, hating myself, pushing you away, and now he's gone. I can't fix that." "Maybe not," he said, "but you can stop running from the rest." She looked up at him then, and something inside her broke free. "I don't know how to stay," she admitted. "Then I'll teach you," he whispered. That night, the wind returned, gentler this time, like the land itself was breathing again. Claire stood with Eli at the edge of the corral, the same spot where her brother used to feed the horses, the same tree where Eli had carved her name years ago. "Do you ever think about leaving?" she asked. "Every time I look at the horizon," he said, "but then I remember there's nothing out there I haven't already found here." "You really think I belong here after everything?" she asked. "I think you've always belonged," he said. "You just forgot how to believe it." For the first time in years, Claire laughed, a small, fragile sound, but real. "You make it sound easy." "It isn't," he said, "but neither is loving someone who runs from her own heart." She looked at him, her chest aching with all the words she'd never said. "You should hate me for what I did." "I tried," he admitted. "Didn't work." "Why not?" "Because love's stubborn," he said with a half-smile. "Kind of like you." The days that followed felt different, lighter, but filled with the kind of silence that heals instead of hurts. Claire began helping around the ranch again, her hands remembering the rhythm of work, her heart relearning the peace of stillness. At night, she'd sit by the porch with Eli, watching the stars spill across the sky. Sometimes they'd talk, sometimes they wouldn't. It didn't matter. The quiet between them said enough. But peace has a way of testing itself. A week later, a storm rolled in again, not of rain this time, but of memories. Claire was in the barn when she found an old photo wedged behind a beam. It was of her, Eli, and her brother, taken the summer before the accident. She could still see the laughter in her brother's eyes, the way Eli's arm rested protectively on her shoulder. The weight of the past came crashing down again. She sank to her knees, tears spilling freely. Eli found her there, clutching the photo like a lifeline. "Hey," he said softly, crouching beside her. "Talk to me." She looked at him, eyes wild with grief. "He should have been the one to live, Eli. Not me. I keep thinking, if I'd driven slower, if I'd taken another road." He stopped her gently, his hands cupping her face. "You can't keep fighting ghosts, Claire. You can't love what's gone by hating what's left. Then what do I do?" "You forgive the girl who survived," he said. Those words broke something open in her. She leaned into him, and for the first time, she didn't hold back. Their lips met, slow and certain, like 2 storms finally finding peace in the same sky. When they pulled apart, her tears had turned to something else, something that looked like hope. Weeks passed. The ranch breathed easier, the horses ran freer, and Claire, for the first time in years, began to dream again. But one evening, as the sun dipped low, Eli found her packing her things. His chest went cold. You're leaving? She looked at him, eyes full of love and sorrow. I have to. I need to see my father's land one last time, settle what's left. I'll come back. He shook his head, voice low. You promise? I swear it, she said. You once told me you regretted waiting this long, she whispered. Don't wait for me again. He stepped forward, brushed his thumb along her cheek. Then don't give me a reason to. She left the next morning, the dawn rising behind her like a blessing. The ranch felt emptier, but different this time, like something had finally been set right. For days, Eli worked in silence, counting sunsets and promises, until one evening, just as the horizon burned orange, he heard it, the sound of a truck pulling into the drive. He turned, heart hammering. Claire stepped out, dusty and smiling, holding a small sprout in her hand. Thought we could plant something new, she said softly. He smiled, the kind of smile that carries both pain and peace. Together? Always, she said. They planted the seed beneath the old oak tree, the one that still carried her name. As they knelt in the dirt, hands side by side, the wind whispered through the branches above them, soft and forgiving. Somewhere, her brother's laughter seemed to echo in the distance. And for the first time in a long, long while, Claire didn't flinch from it. She looked up at Eli, eyes glistening. You were right, she said. About what? About love being stubborn. He smiled. Good thing I am too. As twilight wrapped around the ranch, the two of them sat beneath the tree, their fingers interlaced, the stars waking one by one above them. She leaned against him, heart steady, whole. Eli, she whispered. Yeah? If I ever forget what peace feels like, then I'll remind you, he said. She smiled, closing her eyes. You'll regret choosing me one day. He kissed her forehead, voice low, certain, eternal. I already regret waiting this long. The ranch exhaled beneath the stars. The wind carried the scent of rain and renewal. Somewhere in the stillness, the past finally let go, and love, stubborn, unbroken, and timeless, took its place.